Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Partner Up Podcast. I'm Sergio.
And I'm Kimberly.
And sitting over there is Ardelia. She's going to be joining us, and hopefully she can sit still and take a little nappy.
Yes, we'll see.
Either way, hopefully we're trying to train her so that she can stay asleep through loud noises.
Yeah.
We got through one wedding already. Shout out to our friend David.
Yes.
But hopefully this time we'll get through a whole podcast and not get interrupted.
Yep, we'll see.
So Kimberly, tell me, what do you want to be when you grow up?
That's the famous question, right? People ask themselves that until they're 50.
We've been getting asked that since grade school.
Yeah.
What was your first reaction to that when somebody asked you, what did you want to be when you grow up?
I think I could be wrong, but from what I remember, it had to do something with like animals. Like zoo, like work at the zoo or be a veterinarian. Like I think I remember that being my first like answer when somebody asked me that when I was a kid. Because I really liked the zoo and I loved animals.
Well, you showed cattle.
My brother showed cattle and I was just a supportive role in that. Yeah. He was the one who did
I've
that.
seen pictures of you showing cattle, though.
Yeah. I would only show the babies alongside the mom.
How old were you when you started showing cattle?
Well, my brother, I think he was in like 5th grade when he started with hogs and then moved to cattle when he was in 6th grade. So I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
So I was like 14, 15.
All right. So
Yeah.
a little bit older kid.
Yeah, but I liked animals even before that. Like my family has always been like very animal loving.
Oh, really?
I mean, my dad.
Do you have many pets growing up?
I had a lot of pets growing up because my dad wasn't the type of dad that was like, no animals in the house. Like that's like, oh, hey, you found like a bug, bring it in. We would find, I remember like even our neighbors would find animals, like not even just mammals, like reptiles and bugs. Like we had a tarantula that one of our neighbors at the time saved from like a ranch because he was like working like big electric poles and like he found a tarantula and he put it in the back of his truck and he gave it to my dad. Her name was Harriet. My dad took her to show and tell. I remember when I was in 5th grade, and yeah, she would like crawl on him. We would like feed her, she didn't like dead bugs. She had to like hunt for them. So we would feed her live bugs, and then we had a horny toad named One Horn because a rancher was trying to kill him, and the neighbor saved him and gave him to my dad. And then the rancher had hit him, and so one of his horns broke off. That's why he was called One Horn.
Really?
Mm-hmm. We had a snake named Philip. He got out one time.
Snake name? Okay, so you have a tarantula named Harriet. A horny toad missing a horn, so you named him One Toad.
One
Horn, sorry. That's very, descriptive names. And then you have a snake named Philip.
I think my brother named him.
There it is.
And then one time, kind of like the same route, we had a dog named Shady because she loved sitting in the shade. So that's why I named her Shady. Our first dog, a Dalmatian.
I love hearing that. Every time I hear this story, it makes me crack up because every name is so descriptive. And then you just have Philip.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I really loved animals, and I get that from my dad. I think my dad loves animals.
Well, yeah, your dad was having over there a whole nonprofit sanctuary for animals.
Oh yeah, he definitely was. I think if he could do that and donate to the causes of all these animals and stuff, he would do that.
And how did your mom feel about this?
She was not happy about it. Not that my mom doesn't like animals. She's just not as much of an animal lover as my dad is. I remember one time he even kept was it a brown recluse spider or a black widow? I don't remember. And those are poisonous.
One of those, yeah, that's what I was about to say. One of those are poisonous.
I think it was the poisonous
or
one.
venomous, I should say, before the internet starts lighting us up.
Venomous, poisonous. I don't remember which one.
No. I'm telling you, it's venomous.
Oh, okay.
If you bite it, it's poisonous. If it bites you, it's venomous.
Oh, wow. I didn't know the distinction. But yeah, so she didn't like things like that. Even we had some cats sometimes, she didn't like it. My mom was not as much as an animal lover as my dad, but she let us mostly do what we want when it comes to our animals. We even had a cat inside for a little bit, but then that didn't stick.
That didn't last long, did it? No.
And then we got dogs inside once we were like in high school, like older high school.
Okay.
Because even our dogs were outdoor dogs. But yeah, so I think for a while when I was a little kid, the career I wanted was like a vet or work at a zoo. Just because I loved animals.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I was definitely more of an animal lover when I was a kid. I really wanted. Do you remember those infomercials that had like the nature magazines from when we were really young?
Yes.
I really wanted those. They had like the safari animals and like the penguins and the polar bears.
I remember those next to the, like, they would always show those, and then the oink oink zoo pals.
Yes.
Ribbit,
exactly.
Ribbit zoo pals.
Yes.
Zoo pals make eating fun. Yes, I remember those infomercials.
Yes. So that's my answer for when I was really young. What about you when you were like a little kid? Like,
okay, so I'm saying it right now. I'm telling you, if money wasn't an issue and like I would never have to worry about money ever again, I would be either like a film director or video game director. Ever since I was a little kid, I love video games. I still love video games. I would love to direct either film or video games. But that's because I grew up on like Metal Gear, which is not your typical video game. It's like more of a movie. It's a movie. Yeah.
And I agree with that because I didn't really believe you when you first told me that. But I've seen you play through Metal Gear. Like, I think the first one maybe like 2 or 3 times. And then I've seen a couple of the other ones like once. Mm-hmm. And it is literally a movie.
It's literally a movie. It's a movie that you get to progress through.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and originally that's what very early on when I was a little kid, my dad quickly, I mean, I think I've said the story in the podcast before, but like my dad like coached me very early when I was like in elementary.
Yeah.
To try to find like what career might be best. And he'd be like, all right, let's look at salaries. Let's look at what's a good living that you can make on something that you like to do. And we were going to go with programming. It's specifically programming for video games. I remember he got me a little book of how to code video games with I think it was Maya, which was the software that's used to do 3D modeling. But back then, like being a video game programmer was like saying you wanted to be a rock star. Like the odds were not in your favor. It wasn't as big as it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, from there. Then I actually I hit school, and then I think the next like career shift was when I went from like elementary school to like high school, because in middle school, that's when I entered STISD, and then it's essentially a magnet school, and you have one of 3 choices. You have the business, you have the medical, and then you have the engineering school.
Yeah.
So I chose the engineering school, ended up going to what's called SciTech in Mercedes. And then right across the road is the medical school.
Not even across the road, across like the parking
sidewalk.
lot. Like, yeah, the sidewalk. And that's where I went. So I guess for me, like the transition from like loving animals was like going into medicine. And I think I don't know. I don't regret going to that school because I obviously didn't go into medicine, but I wonder what my path would have looked like if I would have went to like a normal high school, because I was really into all those sports and like the like extracurricular activities, and I didn't get to do that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have made a career out of the extra.
No.
Did you want to be like a basketball star?
No, but I just wonder like the connections I could have made in those like bigger schools.
I don't know.
Anyways,
SciTech, like STISD, it were targeted schools. People who went to that school had a very high academic bar. I remember seeing students that, at least from our era of SciTech, they would drop out because they're like the school and academic load was too high, and they'd go back to their home public schools, and they were like top 10%.
Exactly.
So
I wonder if I would have been a better student.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you have these students that show up and then get climatized to the SciTech academic standard or the STISD academic standard. And then once they get acclimatized to that,
and this was when we went there. I've heard different things. Since
yeah, now it's
been a while.
now it's been a little different. This is just when we went there. Now, like, they're struggling, and then they decide they can't make it, and then they go back to the public school system. They realize, wow, I thought it was hard over there. This is like a breeze. So I don't think, unless you've gone to the high standard first, you wouldn't find the original, like the regular public school system, difficult, because it's a pretty low bar.
I guess. Anyways, I wanted to go into medicine. And I remember while I was in high school, I would change all the time, like what I wanted to do. Like at first I was like, oh, cardiologist, because my grandfather had a lot of heart problems. And I was like, oh, that seems interesting. And then I was like, oh, pediatric cardiologist, because like my brother had issues when he was like a baby. And then I remember thinking, I don't know if, was it oncology, or there was like I wanted to go to geriatrics, like for old people, because anyone who knows me knows I love old people. Like, I was really close with my grandparents growing up, so I feel that kind of just gave me a soft spot to like all older people. And I think some of my friends can even say that, like, oh yeah, she does have a softer spot for older people. And those are the like four different kind of like doctor like practices I wanted to go into, specialties I wanted to go into. And then I was like, no, it's gonna take too long, too much school. So I was like, okay, I'll go into nursing, because like nursing, you can do like a bunch of different things too. And I remember like our senior year, we went to the hospitals, and like we would go work in clinics or in hospitals, and that was a really humbling experience, because like the stuff you have to see, even like as a student. I remember accidentally walking into, like, I was in the oncology ward, one of the hospitals, and I walked into a doctor telling a patient like she was gonna die, like no matter, like they couldn't do anything else to save her. Like me and another student accidentally walked in, and like they didn't even notice we were in there, because like they were just having like a really intimate moment of like like it was like she was like holding her hand, like telling her this, and because we were in charge of going around and like taking their blood sugar, and it was really humbling. And I remember thinking like that's like kind of when my doubt started, when I was a senior in high school, when I would go there, and thinking like, wow, can I do this? Like that is a lot. Like, you know, no matter what, I think area of medicine you go into, most of the time you risk, you know, someone dying on you. Not all medical, you know, specialties, but I think a lot of them you do run the risk. And one of my uncles, he passed away when I was in high school from cancer. And that's why I went to the oncology. Like one of my choices I went to was oncology because of that. For some reason, that's like I think we did like 6 weeks at a time in the different areas. I remember that one the most. That one and wound care. I remember those. I was also like in the pediatric.
Sounds like low level trauma.
Yeah. Wound care was sad because it wasn't just like old people or people who like were in hospitals. It was like people who were mentally disabled and like couldn't take care of themselves, and like parts of their body would like go rancid. And like I ever had to be in the room, and like the things I saw, like Jeez. I saw things like that people.
Hey, but it's come in handy, you know.
Oh yeah.
I've gotten hurt a couple times, and you know, it's handy having somebody who's been in wound care for at least a little bit.
Yeah, and then so like for all that to say, I'm glad I didn't go into medicine, because I enjoy the work-life balance of the career that I gave me, and I know that like medicine. You know, I know people in medicine now, and like they don't really have work-life balance. When I was my first semester, it wasn't even nursing school. It was just my first semester of college, and I was planning to go into nursing school eventually. I did like my prerequisite classes, or the classes I needed to take to eventually try to go to nursing school. I did not like them. I took like the chemistry classes. I took like there's one anatomy and physiology. I don't remember the names, but I remember like that first semester being like, I'm not going to do this. Like, this isn't the career I want.
I remember I wanted to go in the medical field. I wanted to be.
You did?
I went through a couple of like career choices. I wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted to be a diagnostician.
Well, because of house.
Because of house. So I liked the puzzle in it. So that's why I think I gravitated towards computer engineering, specifically like computer science. My degree has a focus in programming and software. So like I initially, when I went into college, I made a shift. I realized video games were a long shot.
Yeah.
And coming from a Mexican household, we're trying to bring our family up, where we don't come from money. We're trying to build our legacies.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, maybe gambling on video games is not a good idea. So then we started looking at like what were the large companies that were hiring, right? So my dad pointed out mechanical engineering. I was like, well, what are the things that I can do in mechanical engineering? I like guns because I liked video games. So I'm like, maybe I can go and like work for the military designing, weapons or something, because I like guns. I liked the intricacies of it. I liked how things work together. So I liked the puzzle of it. And I went into mechanical engineering, and it was just like formulas over and over again. Like it was puzzles, but it's not the puzzles that you can like. It's like the puzzles that like drain you, and you're just like following step by step to get the numbers that you need to plug into a formula and then regurgitate. And I did not find that very appealing. But then I went and talked to a counselor, because I went to college with my dad. So I took my dad to the counselor, and he was trying to figure out like, okay, what are the last 2 years of my degree that I need? And the counselor is telling him about, oh, well, yours is probably going to be computer science. We have computer engineering, but this is not like you. And I'm like, whoa, what's computer engineering? And they told me what it was. It's like hardware and programming, and like it's if you like to tinker and if you like to code. So like that's what that is. I'm like, I love to tinker, I love to code. That's like the two things that I love. Like and once I figured out that was like a sort of field, I'm like, okay, let's go. And that resonated with me, sort of the puzzleness of it. And I remember I told my dad, I'm like, maybe I could be a doctor. And this was right before college, right before I had like officially selected something. He's like, do you like handling poop? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, feces, stool, if you will. And I go, what? So where's this coming from? He's like, yeah. What about inserting catheters and, taking readings of urine? And I go, oh, what? Because that's exactly what your first couple of years are going to be doing. Like, don't think you're going to go straight to being the big shot doctor. You're going to have to put in the time. You're going to have to be with the patients, and you're going to have to do the dirty stuff.
Like in the pit.
Yeah.
Like
so I was like,
show.
Okay, maybe that's not for me. And then another thing was, I thought, okay, fine. Because again, I'm Hispanic coming in. I was going to be first generation college graduate in the U.S., but my dad beat me to that. But again, I needed to think about the money, right? So I can bring la gente up with me. And I was like, okay, fine. Doctor, lawyer, right? Law school. Like it's a whole thing. You need to go. You need to get certified. You need to pass the bar. Once you pass the bar, you need to find a law school. You need to get into a firm. And it was this whole like ceremony thing. Like there were steps that you just had to follow. And it's the same thing with like doctors. You graduate, you have to go through your residency, and like until you finally become a doctor, you have to go to med school as well, right? So it's, the way I saw it, it was just like a lot of not like arbitrary steps.
It was a lot of investment.
It's a lot of time investment for not little return, because obviously they pay
eventually you get
eventually.
Paid well. Yeah.
But to me, I'm like, that just seemed like too long of an investment for the return. And then I met engineering. Engineering paid very well, but it's not for everybody. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
It is a lot of late nights. I mean, just like doctors, just like lawyers, but there's no
certificates.
I mean, there are certificates. Like I know mechanical engineers and electrical engineers go and they get like a certification.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, in programming, You just have to be able to do the code. You have to show proficiency, and then if you can do it, you can do it. That's why there was this big programming boom where everybody was doing, like, even bypassing college. They weren't going to college. They were just doing like boot camps to go straight into Google or go into FANG companies. And because if you could code, that's what they needed. Like, they just needed the people who could actually program the apps and the software that everybody was using. And it paid comparable salaries to lawyers and doctors, but it's a high what would it be, a high cognitive load type of job where you're constantly having to think and have to work through those puzzles. So that's the route that I went to. I just saw there was a lot less road to take for the goal than going through the doctor or the medical or the legal route.
And so that's like where you ended up.
So yeah,
so you're like, check. For me, there's
the funny. Well, yeah, that's where I ended up. Let's leave it at that.
So for me, I think I last talked about like medical, and then I was like, okay, decide not to. So from medicine, I switched to business school, and I went to school for business administration with a concentration in marketing. But I've never worked as a professional in marketing. So I got this degree. I got this thing.
Don't I know it?
And business school was interesting because there's a lot about connections. Like, I remember going to I think it was for my international business class. I went to like morning, like seminars, like breakfast seminars at this restaurant in San Antonio where like business people in San Antonio, one of the professors was a part of it, and they allowed them to invite their students if they wanted to go. So I would get up like once a month on Friday mornings, and I would go to a meeting at a Mexican restaurant, and I would just meet a bunch of different business people. Like, I had to practice my interpersonal skills and like networking skills, and I forced myself to go because I wasn't super outgoing or super talkative. I've always been talkative, but as far as when it comes to selling yourself and like being business oriented, I forced myself because it was extra credit and I loved getting extra credit. And so I would get up, and it was free breakfast too. So who doesn't, when you're a broke college kid, like, who doesn't love a free breakfast? Because we all needed that. Right. And then after business school, I had an internship. Did we talk about this? We talked about like,
we talked about your internship. We didn't say where it was or anything like that.
So I got I guess I'll say it because I hadn't said it. I had an internship at Target as an HR intern the summer before my last semester of college because I graduated in the fall semester.
Bruh. You were HR.
I was HR. That's with my business degree with a concentration in marketing. I did HR. And I did that for about 5 years. And that was it was retail HR, which was so much worse. And like, unless you've lived it, you don't know. Like, you don't know.
Do I count as living it? You know, because I was there with you.
You were my partner during the whole time I had that job. Maybe because like you dealt with it. And so we were talking about like what we wanted to do as kids, and like I could have never imagined myself working that. And even now it feels weird that I did work that job for not too long, but a good amount of time. I think I worked like 4 Christmas seasons. It was like 2017 through 2020 because I left in 2021. At the spring of 2021 is when I left that career. And I can't regret it because we met one of my best friends. We have a godson now through that, you know, and it's just, I can't believe I did that. So while I was in that career, you and I moved in together, and I saw you working in tech, and I remember after working, I think I was in like my 7th or 8th month of working Target full time because I had an internship, took a little bit of break to finish school, worked full time for them. I remember going to you and being like, this is not what I want. Do you remember that?
I remember.
I went to you and I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. This isn't my career.
Over
And
tears.
it took me like 4 years to get out after I told you that. Because it was 2017 when I told you that, the fall of 2017. And I didn't get out till spring of 2021.
And I was like, all right, let's figure out what are we going to do? What do you like to do?
And it took so long to figure that out. So I was like coached by you, I would say, because you were still in college when we had this conversation, because I remember you started working in 2018 here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And so you started working here. And then a year later, I moved in with you. And I moved with Target. Like I transferred areas from McAllen to Austin. And so I'm grateful that I was able to do that, because I didn't have to just go straight look for a job. I remember going and asking for a transfer, being like, I want to transfer to this area.
Remember, kids, if you don't like your job, find another job while you have a job.
Yes.
Because finding another job without a job is much harder than finding a job with a job.
I 100% agree, as I can testify to that now. So once we got here, I had a little bit more time to figure out what I wanted, because like when I worked in McAllen, that district, which is what they call the Target ones, they were so hard on you. Like it was really just, the leadership there was just so tough on you. So like I remember going home and just constantly being exhausted.
In McAllen?
Mm-hmm, McAllen. Same thing here in Austin, but I would say like McAllen was a little bit worse. It was worse because they like minimum was 50 hours a week. I mean, same here, but I remember like I was always working more than those 50 hours. So once I got to Austin, I had a little bit more time. The pandemic hit like 6 months, not even 6 months after I moved over here.
That's right. You went from retail worker to essential worker.
Yep. And I had more time because I feel like the people talk about the pandemic like, oh, I was trapped at home, couldn't do anything. I still had to go to work every single day during the pandemic, during our notorious Austin freeze. So my life was still the same. I was still extremely busy, extremely exhausted, extremely overworked. But I remember like at one point, I think it was like towards the end of 2020, I was just like, I can't. Like working in the retail during a pandemic was hard.
Not just that, like holidays were non-existent. Mm-hmm. Like we basically, when you like, as soon as Black Friday hit, we weren't gonna have you.
Yeah.
Like you were working Black Friday, maybe you got Thanksgiving.
If we were closed, yeah, because we started being closed on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and then like Christmas, all that time, like just the day of, like. But for the most part, we couldn't travel for Christmas. We couldn't travel for the holidays.
We would travel like one day and come back.
Yeah, it was very like quick.
There was no work-life balance. And I knew I wanted to focus. Like I knew eventually we were going to get married. We were going to have kids. And I wanted that to be my focus. And I knew with that career, I wouldn't have it. Some people do it. And like hats off to those people. But the way I wanted to be a wife and a mother like that, the career wasn't going to match up with like the level I wanted. So during that time, I took a Scrum Master certification on the weekend. It was a 2-day course and I passed and I got my certification and then I just started applying places.
I remember because I remember seeing how you worked and all the stories that you would tell me and how essentially you were just organizing workers at a store. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Kimberly, your type of personality would bode very well in this role that we have in tech. It's called the Scrum Master. And what's a Scrum Master? It's basically HR for developers, but you're not actively in charge of the developers. It's
more, I would say, it's like organization, a little bit of, it's like project management. Mm-hmm. Basically, that's kind of what it is. And the role I eventually ended up with, because like we don't have to go into all my history, but ended up leaving Target, went to another job for a little bit, and then I got a program management job, which is not a full-on Scrum Master. It's a little bit different because you do a little bit more than a Scrum Master. And I really loved it. I loved that job. I loved doing the work I did. And because I had HR experience, the team I was working with at the time, I was able kind of to lean in a little bit to that. Like I was able to become like an semi-HR consultant for my teams, even though like I would do my project management work, my program management work, and then do like a little bit of HR
Yeah,
consulting.
because you have to know how to talk to people. You have to know how to like get requirements out of people. You have to know how to manage those expectations. How to get somebody to do something
Get
for
people
someone else.
talking, like just getting people to talk, like not even to each other, but just like in a room when you're together, making them feel comfortable. Like that's also, I feel like, a part of the skills that you need to have or you should have as a Scrum Master. And like the first chunk of time I worked for the company I did, I loved it. It was great. It was great. And yeah, and then tech layoff happens. So that was but I really loved that job and I loved that career. And, you know, we'll see what the future brings because right now I'm a little bit of limbo.
Yeah.
Yes, but
So would you say
zoologist / vet to program manager?
So I mean that's a pretty far range. I mean that went from programming video games to programming apps. So I stayed relatively.
Yeah, it's not too far off. Like I think mine was more of a stretch.
It's a pretty big jump. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're depending on how you look at it, you're still dealing with animals.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
But yeah, no, I mean, and do you see yourself staying as like in this type of field?
Yes, because I really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved being able to create things with my team. And what my favorite part, even of HR when I was working retail, I loved seeing people grow in their own skills and be promoted, whether it was like, you know, a big promotion or just like levels of their skill. And I was able to do that as a program manager too. I helped people like just level up and become better at their skill. Like whether I helped them connect with other developers or I helped them just, you know, be a part of bigger conversations. Like I've always really enjoyed that, like helping people grow. I would say like if I had a passion for like in my career, it would be helping others find their full potential or grow to their full potential. That's probably like the passion. Cause I really, when I my saying was always, if my team succeeds, like that's the indication that I'm succeeding.
That's the motto of a great leader. It's called servant leadership, and that sums it up really well. I'm succeeding when my team is succeeding.
Yeah, and I wasn't even a people manager at my program management job. I was just a supporting role.
Right, but like as a team, you're successful.
Yeah.
Right. So you take towards a communal success. Collaborative feedback to get and then strive towards a goal.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I keep telling you that would be a great sort of agency business you could start.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many different companies I've seen that I've been a part of and or maybe a part of that I have heard say the best projects we've had is when we outsourced it to an agency to organize it. Like just itemizing work, forecasting work, and putting it all together in a timeline is a skill. And a lot of companies don't have that in-house because they're bogged down by their internal processes.
Yeah.
So when you bring in this external party and they're paying the external party to figure out this thing for them, they're going to move all that red tape and say, well, we're paying you to fix this issue. We're paying you to do this. So do it. So you just get to focus on actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
Not having to like worry about, oh, am I going to have to get this approved by this other department? What about this other department? Are they going to raise a fuss if we try to move forward with this project? You know, coming in as a unbiased third party helps you just get things done.
Yeah. So maybe we've just cracked my next career path, step in my career path.
That's right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Kimberly's going to be starting her own agency, and she's going to be helping all the tech startups fill out their sprints.
Yes.
So thank you guys for this episode of...
Episode 10.
10 of the Partnered Up Podcast. And thank you for being here with us, and we'll be back again. I'm Sergio.
I'm Kimberly.
Bye.
Bye.